Welcome, good morning, of course, happy Friday. My name is Lauren Smith-Petta, and I serve as Jumpstart's Director of Education. Today's session is our monthly State of AI update for entrepreneurs and is focused on the monthly highlights and headlines of AI, what you need to know in 30 minutes so you can get in and get going, and how to successfully and ethically apply these tools to your business today or maybe Monday. Jumpstart offers another webinar series on a different topic every month, along with a variety of other educational programs and events. Visit jumpstartinc.org/smallbiz to explore our services. Before I introduce our esteemed presenter today, a few obligatory housekeeping items. This presentation session is a mere 30 minutes. Another 30 minutes at the end will be set aside for the Q&A portion. In your toolbar, you should be able to see an important communication tool for these purposes, the Q&A tool. You can put your questions in the Q&A as they occur to you, and Brad will address them in the second 30-minute section. At the end of today's session and in a follow-up email, you'll receive a brief survey. We appreciate your feedback, especially as we all get a little bit tired of taking surveys, because it allows us to bring in experts to teach valuable lessons for free and to bring Brad back again next month for another AI update. All right, without further ado, allow me to introduce our presenter today, Bradley Reynolds. Bradley is an experienced technology executive and serial entrepreneur with over 25 years in the industry. He has founded and led several successful tech-based startups, including Mongoose Metrics and Expedient, taking them from inception to successful exits. He has deep expertise in cloud computing, data architecture, software design, AI, and enterprise large language models. He is currently an AI consultant focused on helping enterprises adopt private ChatGPT-like systems safely and strategically. He advises on AI strategy, architecture, implementation, and operations. So in other words, once again, you're in very good hands today. Bradley, welcome back.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Let me get this thing shared up. Okay. So welcome everybody. We did one of these last month, and I'm going to kind of go through some updates and changes since then, and maybe some interesting topics to kind of focus on. But I will say that you'll get a copy of this presentation at the end, and you'll see at the end part there's a bunch of resources that you can use, things you can read, courses you can take. I put together an AI success pack that is more for the executive level, but it's kind of like a website you can go to with a bunch of the resources available on it, like ChatGPT, cheat sheets, and all that kind of stuff. There'll be a QR code at the end that you can take a picture of via your Zoom browser or whatever, or you'll get a copy of the presentation. So that's a little housekeeping. So, as AI changes quickly, the bio of mine, since Lauren announced it, has also changed. I'm now the SVP of Artificial Intelligence at Expedient, which is actually a company I started in 2001 and sold in 2005. So I'm coming back to home, working out of Garfield Heights in Neo Park every day. So that's pretty fun. And I think it's kind of interesting that a multi-billion-dollar company decided that they wanted an SVP of Artificial Intelligence reporting to the CEO and specifically running AI as a startup inside of a relatively large organization. So all I say about that is not to toot my own horn at Expedient or about Expedient, but that a large company is making a entrepreneurial bet on where AI is going. And that's, I think, a pretty strong statement to the market and one that you can reflect on other companies. So just off the cuff, I wanted to find an update for that initial image. So I asked DALL-E 3, which is ChatGPT's AI image generator from OpenAI, to give me an image for the October 2023 State of AI presentation. And what I found interesting was it didn't just generate the image, it took the language that I gave it, which was what I just said, and created a prompt that it thought would be a better way to get that graphic done. So that notion that the AI is already in there changing things as to what the intended outcome, and I found the image to be pretty cool. So it's just a little kind of piece. So goals today, we have about 30 minutes, then lots of questions, so get them queued up as you see them. I wanted to touch on first the topic of trust and where that comes into the equation. I wanted to then get into roll up the sleeves. What are the AI tools up to? What are the best AI tools you should be using? What's coming down the pike very shortly? And I wanted to move over to enterprise AI. So this would be like the concerns of if I was interested in implementing AI inside of my company, not just kind of ad hoc on an employee by employee basis, what are some things I should be thinking about? Followed by resources. So go through a bunch of things that you can use to kind of sharpen your saw in terms of AI, and just a quick cap at the end for some final thoughts. So number one issue I wanted to address is trust. So I've been having a lot of conversations with potential customers, existing clients, analysts, and a lot of what has been coming out with that is an assessment of where people are in, to use a baseball analogy, in the innings of the AI game. And the preponderance of the evidence is that I don't know if we're actually out of the batter's box in the top of the first. And this is across large, small, medium enterprises, individuals. And so the question that you're asking yourself is why? This seems like a great tool. It seems like it has so much possibility. And I keep coming back to trust, that we are entering a new relationship with, I can't know how to say it another way, but an alien entity. And we're going to be interacting with it, not in the way that we interact with Google of asking and getting a resource to read, but actually in a conversational format. And that's pretty unnerving for people. And so all of the things that come out of it, like what's in the model, is it going to hallucinate? Is it going to be biased? What's it going to say? Can I trust it? It really just comes down to this, to trust. And it's going to take a while to establish trust. And if you read certain things in the media of, hey, here's how AI breaks, or here's how you're reading about the smaller percentage of negative or bad actor situations, but still it's not an existential threat, but something that is an unlanding threat to the way that we're used to operating. And from a computational perspective, we've been trained that we give computers questions and they spit out a definitive answer. And this thing is a lot more gray and a lot less definitive. So I can get why people are having an issue getting out of the batter's box. And my goal is at my work is to help them do that. But individually, there's some deep issues that we have to kind of deal with. So to me, with AI right now, is just think about it as a first date. You don't really know it. It is an entity, no matter what people want to box it in, as opposed to like this is a computer program. It's much deeper than that, especially from the large language model perspective. And so we all need to develop trust. It takes a while to develop trust in a date or multiple dates or somebody that you get in a relationship with. It's going to be the same thing. And I don't want to anthropomorphize AI that much, but I do believe it's an entity, and I do believe it's way different than a human entity. So there's kind of a deep emotional barrier that we need to get over before we start to be comfortable experimenting and frankly going on dates with it. One of the trust issues, or one of the reasons people have an issue developing trust, and something we all need to think about, is how do we validate authenticity? So for me, if I'm looking at LinkedIn or Instagram and I see things in the thread, so for instance, a hot political topic now is Israel-Palestine. I don't know that I can trust, and I'm kind of an expert in this, any image or any video that's coming out of that conflict. Is relatively trivial to produce video and digital assets without any way to validate whether did that really happen. We'll talk about Photoshop a little later, of how easy it is to kind of make things change. And so this is like a deep issue that isn't going to be solved in the near term. And people talk about, could we watermark it or could we regulate it? I don't know. I think the cat's out of the bag in terms of being able to digitally manipulate things. And so it gets into trust. And for me, the authenticity solution is to meet people face to face. So I tend to put a lot more value on human direct interactions because they can't be faked. And digital, I still put value on it, but there's that kind of thought process in the back of my mind, like, is this trustable? Here's a funny output. So I wanted to talk about a crawl, walk, run scenario with AI. And this is what Midjourney decided crawl, walk, run was. And it's a little scary what AI can do sometimes. Here's a much better version that came out of Dolly. And this isn't any type of a new philosophy. It's just kind of how you approach new things or uncomfortable things. Start playing with it on limited bases. Look at things that you're doing in your business activity specifically, where having a smart reasoning engine could help you. Is it image generation? Is it text generation? Is it summarization? Is it writing emails? Just little things. This is how you get comfortable with it. It's not going immediately from stop to run. None of us work that way. Another aspect is the concept of control, and this is especially important inside of an organization. So right now, I would say AI usage is a little bit out of control, and not out of control in like a negative sense, but generally corporations want to have barriers, boundaries, guardrails about how people interact with a technology. And those are kind of few and far between. Like at Expedient, we have a generative AI policy, but a lot of people don't. That's a first aspect of control. But then after that, it's like, how do we let employees use this stuff, but still have monitoring and logging and capability of making sure the AI doesn't inform them of the wrong things? Those are all kind of control aspects that kind of aren't out there right now. It's just, hey, get a ChatGPT account, and we don't have any visibility into it. So I think that's a helpful part of developing trust. And I just think also in the crawl, walk, run, it is good to have a healthy skepticism. It's a lot of new stuff going on in many, many angles. But I underline healthy because you can easily put a tinfoil hat on and say that, oh, this AI stuff, it's an existential Terminator, Skynet type dread. You're going to be missing the boat because there's a lot of positive value here. There are negative things that come along with anything that makes that type of a change kind of in a society, which is kind of rare for a technology, that it could have societal impacts. But be skeptical, read trusted sources. So random posts on LinkedIn or Instagram are not trusted sources, but things like the Journal or New York Times or ABC, NBC, they vetted information on AI. And that's, I think, an interesting piece. I will say another additional thing about trust is next week an executive order is going to come out from the administration outlining their policy on AI. And it'll be interesting to read what that is. And the kind of preview or the rumor is that it's very innovation and business friendly, with things like reducing the difficulty for immigrants to come to the US to work on AI, but also putting some guardrails in effect of how federal employees work with AI systems. And I only put that out there as like the federal government is likely the most conservative adopter of technology. And it'll be interesting to see what the most conservative adopter has to say, because of all people, they're probably the most skeptical or critical of a new technological system. So something to kind of check out for. But now off of the philosophy, let's get to like how this can actually do something, which is tools. What should you be using? I wanted to start with this. So Andre is a pretty famous AI researcher, but this statement of English being the hottest new programming language kind of resonates, and it's even broader than that. English is like the new language to accomplish goals in terms of computers and data integration. But the notion that we don't need to necessarily know Python deeply or some sort of esoteric COBOL language, we can use our native language to make things happen, it's a game changer in terms of the conversation that we can have with information and data. A little unnerving. But if you take nothing else from this whole presentation, use GPT-4. If you're going to use AI, you have to use the best AI. It costs $20 a month from OpenAI, but there's a bunch of additional features. And I put this graph, which is a copy of something from Ethan Mollick, who's a Penn Wharton entrepreneur professor, but has just great things to say about AI. And GPT 3.5 to GPT 4, I think, was about 6 months. And this is the results of 4 versus 3.5 on a bunch of standardized tests. My wife's currently in law school, and I was particularly interested in the bar exam one. So it went from being 15% grade on the bar exam to like 85% in 6 months. Bar exam's obviously quite a difficult bar to pass, literally. And this shows you why you shouldn't be using the free version. So if you've been using the free version and saying, I don't know how well this AI stuff works, you're selling yourself short. The $20 is a couple Starbucks lattes. Like you should be using 4 if you're using AI at all. I'm going to go through some things that you can do with 4. You have access to web for it to go pull things on the web. You have access to it to process documents and spreadsheets, and you have access to its image generation outside of its normal regular processing. So here was just an image I crafted for AI presentation or Halloween. DALL-E 3 is great. Our last presentation, we talked a lot about Midjourney because DALL-E 2 was significantly inferior. Well, 1 month later, it's caught up and surpassed Midjourney. The reality is, it's been worked on while Midjourney was out there, but there's all of this stuff that is in queue that we don't know about yet that is going to kind of erupt in the next few months. But this is like something that you get in terms of under the hood for GPT-4 or ChatGPT Premium. What went on in the 2023 American League Champions Series? The Bing browsing allowed this to figure out. So it basically went to the web, did a search, and was able to summarize that type of information. So access to the web is a great way to take these models and give them some more brains, because the models are all trained and stop on a certain time. I think GPT-4 might have been April 2023, could have been 2022, but it doesn't have topical current knowledge. And so kind of the marrying of AI to the web is an important thing and quite useful. Summarize my resume. So the advanced data analytics, it can do a lot more than that, but just the notion of you have documents or structured files that you want to manipulate and do things with, that's kind of part of the package. And deep that you don't get for the free part. And then this one was the one that kind of blew my mind in the last week. You have the way to, so I do a lot of programming, but you could take a picture of somebody else's cool back-end dashboard that they have for their business. So this is like what you would let your customers log into to see a bunch of information. Take the picture, upload it into GPT-4, and then it will write the code that you can use to duplicate that. So, which was an unbelievably Byzantine and difficult process before this. But the notion of I can take an image and have it recognize what's in that image and write the code so I can make a dashboard in like an hour that might have taken me months to do in a team and all this UI UX thing, unbelievable. But again, GPT-4 versus 3.5, and I find this one amazing. But the question is okay, that's great, that's OpenAI, but what about Microsoft? And interestingly, Microsoft is a 49% owner of OpenAI, so they get a lot of the benefits. What's coming as of November 1st is a general release of Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot will be kind of like the OpenAI backend integrated directly into your Microsoft Office 365 suite. I need this slide to happen for my life. I will miss, if I get 200 things I need to respond to in a week, I'm going to miss like 10 of them, even though I try really hard. I don't want to let those things fall through the cracks. There is no easy way to do it right now, but this is a perfect use case for Copilot from Microsoft in Outlook. Does a bunch of other things too, but like that is the one kind of core use case that I wanted to do. So I'm going to be activating my account on November 1st. It's $30 a month per user. But I'm going to get a lot more than $30 of value out of that. Even if I get one email responded to that I would have let go through the cracks, that's very consequential. And I'm not doing it intentionally. It's like, I think we all have large inboxes. Same thing with PowerPoint. Let's create some presentations. Let's kind of move them around. Here's an example of, hey, I have this deck. I want to add a slide for a certain thing, cost benefits of sustainable materials. I type that in English, the best programming language, and bang, I get a slide that shows me build some graphics in, potentially source graphics or potentially generated through DALL-E 3. And you can tweak it. You could say, hey, now I want this slide. Yeah, the light bulb I don't like in the middle. How about we put like a hydroelectric plant? It will then put that in that slot. And you speak to it in English and tweak it. But importantly is you have a conversation with it. It's never going to be right the first time. It never is without AI. So you can kind of change it along the way. Same thing with Word. Hey, I have some data. Let's kind of convert this data that I have into a table. Just talk to Word on the fly, make your documents look a lot better. Excel. Hey, I have essentially a database table. How do I write some code to kind of sort and order it better and turn it into a forecast? You speak and say, I want to take this data and turn it into a forecast by quarter. So that's what it does. So you see up here, create a chart to help me better understand the data. You didn't even say by quarter. It just figured do it by quarter. If you don't like it by quarter, you want it by month, great. It'll do it by month. Super powerful. So the notion of, as opposed to going to a separate site for ChatGPT, you're now just having it integrated inside of your apps. I would highly recommend for $30 a month, paying Microsoft to activate it if you're a Microsoft user. What about Adobe? We talked about images and all that trust stuff before. We talked about this a little last time, but the notion that you could take a graphic and expand it and tweak it, and it will automatically generatively fill that in. The information on the right of this graphic didn't exist before. Adobe's AI figured it out on the fly. It looks imperceptible. The negative of that is we don't know if it's real or not. It's not real because we have this example, but if you just looked at this on Instagram, you would never know. What about Salesforce? Salesforce has a giant store of corporate data behind everybody's instance, and they have a lot of AI tools built on top of it. One of the main stories of AI is how do we get access to corporate data and kind of make decisions off it. So Salesforce is very well positioned. I'm not going to go into all their tools, but if you're a Salesforce user, there's a lot to unpack there natively inside of that app. I want to talk just a little bit kind of as we start getting towards the tail end about enterprise AI. So this is the notion of, okay, I'm kind of comfortable with AI myself, but how could I use it inside of my business kind of in a more corporate fashion as opposed to ad hoc in an individual fashion? So I'll define enterprise AI as it's taking the brain of artificial intelligence, which could be an AI model like a large language model, and marrying it to proprietary corporate data. So data you wouldn't want to leave the company. In the Salesforce example, it's your Salesforce data, but there's often databases that have interesting information, files and document stores, customer support databases, all that type of stuff. How do we use AI and marry that to that data so we can drive insights out of it? For instance, at Expedient, when a trouble ticket comes in, before that ticket goes to an agent, we go in and say, hey, do we know how to solve this problem? Well, when we say that in English, we're asking our large database of ways that we've solved problems before, and then it will append a potential solution to the ticket. So it potentially saves us significant time in terms of diagnosing and solving a problem. But the important part of that is data governance. We can't have that data leaving Expedient. It can't go out to OpenAI and all of that type of stuff. So it's like the important part from an enterprise perspective is, hey, we want to get access to all this great data, but we need to do it responsibly. And so there's a next level of dialogue that maybe folks aren't at yet, because they're still in the batter's box at the top of the first. But coming shortly down the pike is like, okay, if I want to use this inside of my company, I have to treat this data as sacrosanct. It could be customer data, it could be employee data. I need solutions that help deal with those governance concerns. And we know from this graphic, AI still can't spell. Privacy. If employees are using ChatGPT, how do you guarantee that they're not putting proprietary or private information out on it? There's starting to be technological solutions for that. Expedient has one, but there's a variety of other ones. But you need to think about what's going out to OpenAI. Is it just open season? That's not going to work. So you're going to need a policy around privacy, and you're also going to need software tools to kind of enforce that if you want to implement it across an enterprise. Legality, copyrights, trade secrets, all kinds of things. That is a nebulous area. So what you need to understand what is coming out of AI. Is it something you want to send to a client? Is it subject to copyright? I asked AI to create something with a just do it solution. It refused to, which is correct because it's a trademark. But these are things that we need to be thinking about as a corporation. Highly suggest that if you implement enterprise AI, so proprietary data, that you do not have the AI interface directly with clients or directly change systems. Right now, keep a human in the loop. So I gave the example of a trouble ticket getting created. If the trouble ticket gets created, AI suggests a solution to our OSC rep, but it doesn't solve the problem for the client. I have not felt comfortable or trusting that I'm going to let this thing loose talking to humans. There's lots of talk about, well, we'll just have a completely automated support center, this is out in the world, and have the robots talk to the clients. It's like I'm not there yet. So for now, and probably in my mind forever, having a human in the loop to say, hey, what coming out of this system the right way that we need to respond to this situation? I think it's really critical to have a human in the loop for any type of enterprise solution. Accuracy, the accuracy isn't 100%, but I would posit that the accuracy of talking to a human isn't 100% either. People are expecting AI to behave like a computer, which traditionally had been like, look up a field in a database and give it to me, 100% accurate. When you're asking it fuzzy language questions, it's not necessarily 100% accurate. It can hallucinate, it can make things up. Just treat it with a grain of salt and treat it like, kind of not to anthropomorphize too much like a human. There's some steps that from our corporate perspective, we generally take people through, which is like getting your baseline, setting the stage of like setting policies, figuring out how to not have employees all going ad hoc to ChatGPT, use cases, getting data ready, and then something called a private inference solution, which isn't as relevant to this kind of crew, but there's we'll just say there's a stair step. So this would be the crawl, walk, run. Run would be kind of at the end phase of enterprise AI. But most people are at setting the stage right now. And so we got to talk about all those things and making those policies and getting the procedures and team in place to go and execute. Some resources that I have, I'm going to quickly kind of go through these, and you'll get a copy of this afterwards if you want to kind of drill into it and sign up for some of the webinars. But I'll stay on this one a little bit. So we did a webinar at Expedient for the building your AI strategy for 2024. This is like policy plan and all that kind of stuff. And I mentioned policy a few times, but this is a website that you can go to, and it has just like a collection of information. And one of them will be like, here's a potential policy guide. There'll be links to all the newsletters that I have later in this, but it's just an easy way to digest all this information. So, and the QR code I'll have it also at the end of this presentation, but it's like a good grounding spot. Some general resources. These are just things that you can get your arms around the state of AI. There's a great YouTube video of Sam Altman on Joe Rogan that came out in the last month. That's just interesting to hear what Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, has to say. Some newsletters. I covered these on the last talk. But these are the newsletters I read every day. So I just like reading the paper, I kind of thumb through these guys for an hour or two a day, see if there's any interesting information to kind of dig deeper in. Podcasts. I have 2 podcasts I listen to on the car, which is Hard Fork is my primary one, and Last Week in AI is my secondary one. They're both kind of like an hour a piece, and Last Week is a little more technical. Hard Fork is a little more general technology. Both excellent. And then a link to that strategy webinar that we had if strategy was something that was important for your org to kind of define for 2024. Some people that you could follow on Twitter for information. I don't get a ton out of Twitter. It's too bite-sized, and a lot of this stuff needs to be a little bit more long form, but just some people to follow in the feed. If you want to go deep, technically, there's places you can take courses to our deep learning AI and Coursera's machine learning area. me and a guy in Cleveland, Ted Troxel, we became ambassadors, approved ambassadors for deep learning.ai in the last month, which means that we can offer like discounts on courses to folks in the Cleveland area at the AI meetup. So there'll be some benefits coming down the pike there. And then I guess some summation thoughts. So I think trust is a much bigger thing than AI. It's something where there's this interesting interrelation between humans and machines. On one side, I think we're going to need to spend more time with humans because we're going to be less trusting of machines and machine output. It's very difficult to authenticate a digital anything. And we can authenticate sitting down next to somebody and having coffee. Like there's no need to authenticate. So I think seeing live music, going to the art museum, reading a book in your hand, those are things that I think are going to become more valuable because some of the digital pieces are going to become less individually valuable. We can just print more whenever we want. So there's an interesting just dynamic that's going to go on, and that's something that we're going to all be wrestling with. And I just feel very strongly that we need to take intentional space to create in-person interactions, whether that's for sales or networking or community building or going to the pool, or I guess in Cleveland, going to the ice rink in the winter. We don't need to be locked in behind our screens at home, 24/7. And I think we're going to need that as maybe a species more and more as AI becomes more prevalent and takes over more tasks. And as a final one, this is the worst version of AI you're ever going to use. So if you're amazed by it now, just think about what's in the queue that we haven't seen yet. And it's, to me, I'm cautiously optimistic and positive on it. So the final words, and we'll start with the questions. And if you need the AI success kit, I'll leave this up during our Q&A while we're going through everything. Thanks. Okay, how do I see the questions?
So we don't have any yet. I'm sure everyone's been sitting here figuring out what they need to ask. So you are welcome to raise your hand and we can unmute you folks, or you can put your questions in the Q&A specifically. So we have our first. Michael, I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question.
Hey, Brad. Mike Hammer here. Yeah, I asked the easy questions. So on one of your slides, you showed, or you talked about somebody taking a picture of a dashboard and then creating a dashboard of their own from it.
Yeah, let me go back to that. Sorry.
Oh, you don't have to.
No, why not?
It's something that is prohibited by Expedient's own terms of service on your website. So how do you reconcile you saying, hey, here's a neat trick you can do, with something that your own company says, yeah, don't do that?
What's the prohibition? I've not read the policy.
Basically, taking I'd have to go back and find it. I was looking at it while you were talking, because I read terms of service and EULAs and stuff. But basically it says you can't reverse engineer anything from the services or products that they're providing a customer. So presumably you'd have to be logged in to see their dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that I look at it as individuals, and you as an individual, like, this is a trick of something you do. I was only putting it for illustrative purposes, but it's like what's that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll say that it's like for instance, you can't log into LinkedIn and scrape it. Like, you can't put a robot on top of it. But the notion of like robots and scraping are just kind of general concepts. So I would certainly never advocate for somebody to log into whatever this web UI is and kind of duplicate that. But you also have to ask the question, is the work a duplication or is it actually transformative? You're not duplicating their code, you're using the kind of visual aspects of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is what the tool can do. And, you're an individual human and you can make your own decisions about what rules you want and not to comply to. I'm going to comply with whatever our company says we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. We do have the questions pouring in, so we will go to our next live question, and then I'll read some of them to you. We're going to go over to Ethan now.
Okay.
Hey, Brad, great presentation. Thank you. So my question has to deal with that new tool that Microsoft's going to release.
Oh, Copilot?
If I were to use Copilot in a corporate setting, do I now have an issue where Microsoft will now have access to confidential information from my company if I use it? Or do they wall it off so I can use it for the company and I'll still be safe?
It's a thorny question that maybe CIOs and chief legal officers might have opinions on, and it may differ by company. So Microsoft and Copilot says that they're not using any of your data to train any models and whatever, but the reality is it's a service that's hosted somewhere that you're exporting your private company data out to. So you're essentially saying, I believe that their license or their user agreement will never change. And the way that most of those agreements are written these days is we can notify you when we're going to change something. So now you've built your process around it, and then they say, oh, well, you know what? My bad. We've changed it going forward. You can stop using it going forward if you want to. So there's that. And then there's the security possibilities of what if they get hacked, and your data is going in kind of clear form to them as opposed to in an encrypted form or something like that. So it's thorny. Generally, Microsoft businesses have trusted them more because they're very business focused, but I don't know about OpenAI. Like, if no matter how much they swear up and down, they're not using that proprietary data. I don't know if even on a 1% chance if a CIO would be willing to go along with that piece of paper that they can change any month. So I personally would be fine with using Copilot, but there is a risk there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brad. The next question we have is from Jeff, and he said, what steps do we take to implement an enterprise solution? And do you expect it can be used to respond to RFPs?
Yeah, I forget what the company is, Jeff, but if you look on the internet and look at AI RFP responder, one of the large organizations has built, like, this is a company that responds to a lot of RFPs. It could be Amazon or something. They built exactly what you're talking about. So we all hate RFPs because most of the time they go nowhere and they just make you do like hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. But certain deals require RFP response. So like that problem has already been solved at a large company level. I haven't seen like RFP writer as a service yet, but it's coming, and I'll be using it when it comes. So it's soon.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Roseanne is wondering, and we can send and share links afterwards, I'm sure, but if you're a brand new person to AI, where do you learn about some AI basics?
Yeah, sure. So in the success kit that I have up on the screen, there is a like a ChatGPT cheat sheet, like some really, really basic things. But I think it's like starting to use a tool as opposed to doing a bunch of reading and getting confused. And by using the tool, and again, GPT-4, not 3.5, the paid version, you'll get an idea of what the conversation can be. And then inside the success kit is a bunch of other stuff you could read, but maybe don't do a ton of reading before you start using, so you have a frame of reference. That would be my suggestion.
That's great. I agree. It makes it a little more intimidating to read and read and read rather than just getting your hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Jeanette is wondering, any thoughts on using AI in healthcare with patients?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things around that. I mean, there's concerns about privacy and all of that stuff. But I kind of look at it as a user experience thing. If I go into the doctor, they kind of ask me the same 6 questions every time. Like, why do I need to take up their human time to do it? Why can't I have a front end that essentially gets me through all the basic blocking and tackling when I need it? And so I think AI could be employed there. I haven't seen that yet. Being able to ask questions like in the clinic of my chart, like via AI, I think could be something. Doctors have a lot of internal use cases for medical of like summarizing patient notes. So like they take notes while you're seeing a doctor and then they have to summarize them at the end. They want to use AI to do that for them. Additionally, if you come in for an appointment, you have your whole medical history they have access to. It's just like going into a business meeting. Hey, what was the last things we were talking about? Give me an idea. And it's with doctors seeing a lot more patients, it's kind of hard for them to get kind of back into the groove of who you are and what your particular history is. So there's a lot of different ways with a lot of different privacy implications to implement AI in healthcare. But I think the ones that maybe start with the doctor first are the best ones, not like automating what a doctor does, but helping a doctor do their job easier, because the doctor controls it and the doctor's very respectful of patients, the most because of that relationship. So I think that's kind of how I'm looking at the AI and healthcare stuff.
Great. We're in full-blown rapid fire mode. So next question is from David, and he's wondering, for startups entering the AI space, is it enough to build on top of ChatGPT, or do they need to build their own LLMs?
Yeah, so I'll start at the end. Definitely don't build your own from scratch. It's like way too resource intensive and just like skill intensive. But I'll say from the entrepreneur's perspective, if you build your application or offering on ChatGPT and it took you like 3 weeks to do, well, there's a bunch of other smarter, faster, stronger people out there that can do the same thing. So as an entrepreneur building a business, the real question you should be asking yourself is, how do I build a moat around my technology that I can protect for 5 years? Somebody invests in you, they're investing in you at a VC level for 5 to 10 years. They want to know the answer to that question. So I say, hey, maybe that's a great way to start your offering to get some initial, get that initial flywheel spun up. But you got to be thinking about, how do I insulate my operation against competition? And just building on top of ChatGPT probably isn't the right long-term solution for it. And there's a lot of an intermediate step between creating your own model and building on top of ChatGPT is you can host your own model. So you could take one of the open source models like Llama 270B or Mistral or something like that and build on top of that. So now it's locally controlled by you and you can tune it and stuff. But fine tuning and basically customizing a model Meta has built is way less resource intensive than building one from scratch. And so that's a good spot. But the question you got to ask yourself then is, do I know how to scale this thing up? Because it is a lot more difficult to scale that up. If you need to scale up on ChatGPT, you just make more API calls. Like, they deal with all the backend stuff, and it's not trivial to scale the backend plus, beyond like a proof of concept.
Great. The next question is from one of the attendees wondering, what are your thoughts, Brad, about Bing offering ChatGPT 4 for free?
Use it. So like there's like the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI is weird, because Microsoft owns 49%, but OpenAI is selling things that compete directly with Microsoft. I don't know how that's all going to reconcile out there. But Microsoft often exposes pieces of OpenAI stuff before OpenAI does, or at cheaper prices. And so like if you can use GPT-4 chat for free with Bing, and that's what your use case is, use it through them. Or the other thing is, before DALL-E 3 image generator was available on OpenAI's ChatGPT, was available through Microsoft Bing. So you can use those things. The issue is, if you pay for premium GPT-4, you end up having all of that in one place under the hood. And so that is a particular one that is, it's just convenient for me versus worrying about what does Microsoft have implemented into OpenAI. So, but hey, if you can avoid paying $20, avoid paying $20 for sure.
Great. Ted says, you suggested that a human be kept in the loop. But taking, for example, an AI coaching solution that is providing feedback in real time and at scale, how can a human realistically be kept in the loop in cases when there's such a cadence and depth of data flow?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. So there was a company that just presented to North Coast Angels or Ventures the other day. I forget what its name was, but it was a AI or not AI, a personal assistant for like helping folks that are working a lot do like all their personal life tasks. Say if you're a McKinsey consultant, I forget what it was. It's a very impressive company, but Strong Suit was what it's called. And so, everybody's talking about AI. How does AI integrate in my product or whatever? And I think her name was Lauren or Lindsay. She said, look, all interactions that our clients, like that McKinsey consultant, has with us are with a human, because we don't believe that the AI is capable of doing that type of work to the accuracy and the level that a human would expect. So, yeah, can you set a human to an AI robot? Yeah, you can, but and it might get you some efficiencies, but the question you ask yourself, is that the experience you want to be giving to, like in Expedient's case, our clients who have invested for years with us and have infrastructure with us? Is that the look that we want to show them? So for us, it's no. For other folks, let's say it's a high volume call center to Comcast. Yeah, for sure they're putting you into a robot. But that's kind of why they suck too. And so it's like, I don't like being treated that way. And the AI is not really at a point where, and maybe I hope it never gets to a point where we really want to interact with it. But you make the decision based on your business case and the user experience you want for your clients. I just haven't found it's quite ready to, be let off the chain in those types of things.
The last active question we have in the queue is from Ethan, and he says, if we use Microsoft's new AI tool with Outlook, will that potentially expose confidential data to Microsoft that it can use elsewhere?
Yeah, we got this one at the beginning because that you got Ethan's question. He was the first one that gave it, so I think I kind of covered all of that stuff.
Awesome.
Cool.
Does anyone else have any other questions? We've got Brad for 12 more minutes.
I'd like to go eat lunch.
Too bad. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Very efficient. It looks like we don't have any other questions at the moment. Brad, do you want to provide a way for people to reach you or put that up as a last slide here? Awesome.
Yeah, sure. If you need to hit me up, that's my email. I don't know if I have my contact in the AI Success Kit, but it might be there too. But I'm happy to rap about any AI. So all those questions were great. And they touched on like thorny things that aren't very black and white. And that's kind of where AI is at now, is a lot of complications and conundrums and riddles and mysteries. But I'm happy to talk about any of that up from a programming level up to like just the AI policy level. I'd love to connect.
Wonderful. And if you appreciate Brad as much as we do, he'll be back next month. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming again. Congratulations on re-upping with Expedient. It seems like a cool, exciting opportunity to return to your roots there. So speaking of next month, I am enclosing the link to our events page in the chat. Our next State of AI update with Brad is Friday, November 17th at 11:30 in the same format. And then our next general webinar is November 15th from 12 to 2 on running your business better with EOS. That's all we have for today. We will see hopefully all of you and Brad back again next month, and have a wonderful weekend.